guys. So, I made that post about leaf spring shock tech for the RC four-wheel drive stuff. So this is just going to be basic across the board for most of your, TF2. The TF3 is actually a little bit different. But like mainly most of your TF2. But the thing you got to keep in mind, uh, is actually some of the older TF2 platforms have some issues with like their older leaf springs. So, and I don't know what they've updated. I'm figuring the new kit that comes out that's got the opening doors and opening hood probably have the new style leaf spring. So, I know the extra cab in this truck, uh, my buddy's new red 4Runner didn't have them, so I don't know when they started. This might have been one of the first models that they started that softer spring steel on their leaf springs. Because this is the first truck that I ran into. The leaf springs were just a lot better material on this truck than even like my Marlin. Like everybody makes a big deal about the Marlin. Actually, the Marlin suspension doesn't work anywhere near as well as the suspension that this did coming almost out of the box, both of them. This truck had way better suspension. So I don't know what they've done with their leaf springs. I need to research and see if I can figure out, part numbers and stuff because this truck, and I bought another set that was listed for this truck, and they're not as soft as the super soft reds. I primarily stay away from the super soft reds. Uh, these seem like they just work better, and I think that these might just be softs, maybe on their website if you look for them. I don't know, but they came stock on this white extra cab. Uh, when I go and buy leaf packs now, I just buy the cheap ones off of AliExpress. And they are, I think, Power Hobby is the brand of the leaves, and I'll show you here on another truck that I have sitting over here what I'm running on it. And what I do is they're bruiser shackles that come on their leaves, and I use their shackles and their leaves is what I'll primarily mostly be using from now on because they work so much better. Same way with the HP 407 truck, the leaf packs are closer to this than what they are any of the other stuff. So, and they're really cheap and affordable. You don't need to go out and blow, 40, $50 for leaf springs, even from RC four-wheel drive. I'm sorry, you just don't have to. Uh, it is what it is. I'm just putting out, real information out there. And then I'll get into when I was made that comment on your video, Toe Shifter, I was just trying to help you out because I went down the route that you went, to lower the vehicle and did like spent money, did a leaf under, changed a bunch of stuff around to get the vehicle to sit a little lower, to be a little more scale. In reality, for me, the best that I've found is, I guess, the best place for us to start here. These leaf springs, what they're made out of, it's like a spring steel. It's got tension on it. They're spring steel. So just naturally, if you take some spring tension out of spring steel, it'll soften it up, right? So most of these trucks, I don't have anything that's stock to show you guys, okay? So most of these trucks come out, and they sit up really high. This one's set up actually about that height right there. Yeah, this is like a drooped out how I have it set up, but it's set up probably about to that height right there. It's set pretty tall from the factory because your leaf shackles should not be sitting like this, close to folding back under on these trucks. So it just looked kind of ridiculous to me. If you're into great big jacked up trucks and stuff like that, and that's your dig, then that's cool. That I'm more like, I think people take what I say the wrong way sometimes when I say scale. Because I mean, all this stuff's kind of scale. It's just I like scale. I don't know how else to put it to have everybody understand. So that don't look like a stock Toyota pickup truck to me. So I didn't want to go super low. You could even do this and then go as far as to go with a leaf under and put really small tires. I just try. Everybody likes something different, a different setup. I primarily try to stay with a 3.85. I'll drop down sometimes to like a 3.75 or 3.7 tire. That's primarily about as small as I'm going to go. For me, because, I've still got to have some performance out of the truck. So, we'll just start with the leaf. So, the leaves on these trucks, like I said, they're spring steel, so it's easy enough to do. What I do is, and I've got several of these videos, so this is probably going to be my last one that I do. I've done this. I've got like 2 or 3 other videos here on my channel. Just look up like leaf spring tech stuff. I got all kinds of videos on there. I figured I'd just go ahead and do an update video for everybody because I was, dorking around with the shock lengths on this one and came up with a little better of a setup even. So, you got your axle, and then your leaf springs bolt to your axle. So you'll have your leaves here. And what I do is, I'm going to go ahead and grab a leaf. Okay, so we got our leaf. So this is a leaf that has been unmodified. And this is basically just a new leaf. Now this one actually is a soft RC 4-wheel drive leaf. I've got a couple sets of these. Sometimes I just buy leaves and put them back if I break one, even though I've only broken one, and it was my fault being stupid. So I just like messing around with different stuff. So you'll have your leaf screwed to your perch like this right here, and we're just going to use my thumb as the screw holding it. So you'll get this with these RC 4-wheel drive trucks, and when they're all jacked up like this, you can see this back tire is actually kind of sucked forward in the wheel well. And it'll do the same to the front, even though my arm's blocking it. It'll kind of shove that tire. Unless you've got reverse shackles, it'll go the opposite direction. So, that just looks ridiculous. Your tire should not be up in here in your wheel well. So when you drop it back down, it's natural. Your shackle in the back goes back. If you got a forward shackle, your shackle in the front will push you a little farther forward in your wheel well in the front, which is where this actually should be sitting, which is almost dead center. This one's sitting in it. It's almost dead center. So a lot of guys get those kits. Okay, so we went ahead and just put some screws in the leaf spring there. So you'll notice how the leaf spring's got that bow, how it's bowed up. So actually, I didn't even end up needing, I was buying the Bauhaus rear shackles for all these trucks because when they come all jacked up from RC 4-wheel drive, even after your leaf springs start breaking in, what you'll get is this will still have too much of an arch to it, so your rear shackle can lock up on you. It can flip and it'll roll the wrong way. It'll bow your leaf spring up, and then it'll bind your rear suspension up on your truck. So when you're doing this and you're taking the bow out of these leaves, it actually does away with, I haven't had the need to run even to buy the Bauhaus rear leaf spring part. And I think RC 4-wheel drive might make that as well, where it's supposed to take, some of the angle out of your, rear shackle. So this kind of does away with having to have the need of buying that $20, $30 part as well. And it actually, like I said, it puts your truck, with your wheels centered in your wheel well without spending more money. It's just a simple thing to do. So the problem with this is if you want to run a big tire, it is going to lower the vehicle down. So if you're one of those guys that, for me, I don't need that great big giant tire. They don't look scale. I primarily run the biggest, 4.19 tire pushes it for me. And that makes it look like a giant lifted truck to me with like 42s on it. So, This looks more like a truck with, like, you know, to me, 33s on it, 32s. It just depends on where you're at in the hobby, what you consider, you know, especially if you're a 4.75 guy. You know, these tires look tiny to you. Really, them 4.75 tires look like monster truck tires to me, but that's just me. So back into this. So you're gonna have to run, you know, the tires that came on this truck stock fit it lowered, like this. You could probably be able to squeeze even the stockers that come on the extra cab with this and a leaf under. So what you do is, it's just real simple, guys. You just, you know, you'll have both your leaf springs bolted here, and you'll just bend this down some to take some of your bow out. That's all you do. And it'll take some of that spring steel out too. And we've already started lowering it a little bit. Just like that right there. And it's already lowered down. Of course, you'll have your leaf under, or your whatever other leaf you run in your pack you want to run. I generally run the medium leaf in the back, and the front I keep the small. So you'll have a stack of 3 leaves. So I'll run the main and the long one in the rear to keep the axle wrapped down. And then in the front, I'll run the main leaf and the smaller leaf from the pack in the front of the trucks. That's what I do, and that's a way to kind of just go through and cheaply lower your truck down. Here's the thing you're going to have to invest in to get the articulation that you want. I know everybody makes a big deal. They think that you have to have 127 inches of suspension travel. Primarily, one of the reasons why I love these leaf trucks is they do a thing that's called reaching. And they'll reach way out there without dropping a tire down in the hole and grab your next ledge over or whatever. Sometimes a lot of articulation can screw you. Some people love a lot of articulation. I'm one of those people who I don't need shit tons of suspension travel, especially if I'm trailing. I like the way a leaf truck reaches out and grabs onto your next rock or whatever, even if that wheel's hanging out. In real life, if you've got a 77, 80 model Toyota truck with, you know, a straight axle leaf front end, you don't get 127 inches of suspension travel out of that truck box stock. You know, I come from those times back in the day, and they all rode rough. All the straight axle leaf stuff all rode rough. You know, you're not going to take an 80s model Chevrolet or a 70s model Ford straight axle leaf truck and get, you know, 37 inches of suspension travel out of a leaf truck. That's not how it works. But to me, that's the cool stuff. I like the old school stuff. You know, I like it. That's why I like the RC4 drives, because, you know, they're Chevy Blazers, they're K10s. You know, they're not linked. They're leaf like the truck in real life. That's what I consider scale in the hobby. Not that the TRX 4 Blazers and all that stuff aren't nice as either. They're really nice. I've had 4 or 5 of them. They're not as scale to me as what a true accurate scale truck is. So, you know, that's what I'm saying. I like these trucks to drive like they would in the real world. And honestly, you know, they drove like shit. That's what I loved about them. I've got a 78 CJ5. I would never think about ever putting any kind of link suspension under. I'd rather have it, you know, what it is, what it was intended to be. That's just how I am. You know, I've actually helped build a couple coil long travel link trucks that were used for off-road purposes in the one-to-one world, and I wasn't that super impressed with them. I thought they drove like floppy pieces of shit all over the place. You know, and they had very expensive suspension put under them. So I just kind of like to keep it true scale accurate. That's what I mean when I say, you know, to me scale. So let's get back into this. That's how you can lower this. So if you do this, you're going to have to do a little bit of tweaking with your suspension on your truck. So bone stock, as far as I know, except for the K10, the Marlin, and I think the Rust Bucket Blazer, and probably the Black Blazer, I'm assuming that Midnight Blazer. Most of your standard RC4 drive TF2 stuff comes with this exact setup right here. 90 mil shocks in the back, 70 mil shock in the front. That's what pretty much primarily all the RC full drive stuff's going to come with. I don't know about the 1982 truck. I don't know about the suspension setup on it. I don't have one, and I haven't looked at one up close. Because most, there's one guy here that's semi-local that has one, but I haven't seen it yet. So you'll have, that's your standard setup on any of your TF2s, especially the older ones. Your Midnight TF2, Mojave, your extra cabs, the Marty truck, the regular standard TF2. They all come with this 90 in the back, 70 in the front on your shocks. With most of them have internal springs in them. I think the TF3 was the only one that came without the internal springs in the shocks. I'm not sure. So, anyways, back into it here. These are the stock shocks. One of them's missing because one of them was really messed up. I was going to give these to my buddy, but the housing on the other shock actually almost, my U-bolt chewed into it pretty bad. That's why I ended up changing these out. So, we're going to dive into, trying not to keep this video long, oh, and your front stock shock hoops, they'll be these shorter ones. That's what these are, stock to run the 70 mil shocks. So you'll want to do away with these as well. And I'll put links for some of this stuff in the video description. I don't know if anybody ever actually utilizes it. So you'll have, these are my shock hoops that are my go-to because they're cheap. There's a lot of people out there making, you got like Twisted Fab, making leafs that, to me, I'm not paying $150, $200 for a set of leaf springs. If I ever built one of these and I was going to put great big giant tires on it and butcher my fender wells, and go for more of a beating on the rocks type hard body truck with leafs, I would definitely probably go the route of the Twisted Fab guy stuff. Maybe it seems everybody goes gaga over. For me, this stuff works primarily because I do scale stuff. So I think he makes some shock towers and stuff like that too. So you could look into those if you wanted something a little more aftermarket scale looking, or aftermarket off-road scale. I go with these because they're cheap. They're $3.46, and they are just basically the old style CC hand shock towers that they made back in the day for the TF2 platform. And they're a little taller. This is an extra spare set that I have. They are tall enough to allow you to run from a 70 mil shock in the front to a 90. You can actually squeeze a 90 millimeter shock onto the front and the back. Because if you want more suspension travel, your shock's got to allow it. And a 70 millimeter shock in the front isn't going to allow the suspension travel. You want longer shock towers in the front, and you can spend the $20, $30 or whatever they cost to RC full drive for the Glendale, however the hell you say it. You can spend that money for those if you want. I'm not paying almost $30 for those shock towers from RC full drive. These are just as nice. They're CNC aluminum, and they're $3.46. And they're threaded and tapped, and they have a built-in spacer, so you don't even going to run your shock spacer if you don't want to. These are what I preferably run, and I buy 4 or 5 packs at a time and keep them here. If I ever run into a TF2 or a friend has a TF2 and we're working on his suspension, these are what I like because they keep the scale look of the truck. So you're going to need a set of those or some kind of shock hoop. You could even make something if you want. Also, CC Hand makes a really nice scale. It almost looks like exactly like you would see a shock extension for an off-road truck. They make a real nice one too. I think it's the same height as this one too, though. I think the Twisted Fab shock towers have multi-adjustable holes. My buddy has a set of them on his Marlin. They have a bunch of different hole adjustment holes on them. You can run an even longer shock. Here's what you're going to get into when you start doing that stuff, though. You're going to have to modify some other stuff. So I'm going to pull our body off here and set it off to the side for now. So it's going to be hard to see because I got inner fenders on this. I got everything stock in the back. This truck does have U-bolts on it because you know, I like the scaleness. I like the U-bolts. Looks like a real pickup. Would have the U-bolts on it. And the axle wrap, to me, it's not too bad. I pay attention to what my truck's doing on the trail. I keep an eye on it when I'm scale trailing and stuff. So, real trucks, leaf spring trucks had axle wrap from the day too. Rev a 4-speed old Chevy or Ford pickup or Toyota up and dump the clutch on it at like $5,000 or $4,000 in first gear and watch your axle. They do it. They wrap up. That's what a leaf spring does. If you're paying attention to what you're doing on the trail, you won't break a bunch of shit. You know, I managed to still be able to film and do it, so if I can do it, anybody can do it. So getting into your, you know, like I said, if this is all stock except for the spring purchase here, these are for a TF3. If anybody's wondering, no, I don't have a link for them. I don't even know if you can buy these again because they're discontinuing everything for the TF3. But that's what these are. These U-bolts are for the TF3. So my shocks had to be custom spaced out away from the axle housing to get it away because I didn't want to tear up another set of shocks. So what we've done here is these shocks are aftermarket shocks from AliExpress. They have sold out now. I'll put a link for them, but I don't think you can buy these. I wish I'd have bought 5 or 6 sets because I like them so well. But I'm not getting into the shocks right now. So what you get is the back is fine. You don't got to really change anything. You could get away with running a 100 mil shock, I think, in the back. I've never needed any more than a 90. Because if you're going to run 100, I'll show you in a little bit if you put too long of a shock in the back. I like to use my shock body as a bump stop. Now, you could put, you know, 100 mil on it probably, and that's 10 more millimeters of travel, and probably put some kind of limiter there somehow, and probably squeeze like, you know, 95 mil maybe. I don't know. This was maxed out on this truck to keep it stock looking at a 90 mil shock in the back. So I highly recommend I would keep a 90 mil in the back. I think you'll have less breakages if you're running all the stock RC 4 drive leafs and everything. So in the front, you can see this is, even without the weight of the body on it, it still droops down. That's how I like these trucks set up. So we'll get into, this is what I've done here on the front. It's got the shock hoops in the front. And you can run these shock hoops even if you have the RC 4-wheel drive plastic inner fenders. You'll end up having to trim some of this out. What I've done here is I've just went in just because the body covers this to keep the light coming through here. And these will clear your engine compartment on your 4Runner and your extra cab if you have that engine cover top plate. These won't come up and hit it and cause you any problems. I'm running these on them and my yellow 4Runner over here. So I just made these. This is a piece of self-homogenizing black material tape, and I've just taken just some black hot melt glue, put it over it, and you're not going to be able to see it from, you know, with the body on it, so it's no big deal that this looks like that, because you're not going to see it from underneath. And I just rolled it over, so you know, I just wanted to fill it to where there wasn't any light coming through. So what you're going to run into with your 90 mil shock in the front, okay, this is what I'm running as a 90 mil to match the back. So what you're going to have to do is, and if you got a leaf under, you're going to have to do this anyways, because your front end, unless you have the new version 2, because the new version 2 TF2 axle sets your pumpkin over here. So I think that's what RC 4-wheel drive was pretty smart with that new 1982 truck. With the V2 housing, it offset your pumpkin here because you got your motor. You don't have to have these spacers that I'm running. You can see the spacers in there, maybe. The silver spacers underneath my servo. Because I had to raise my servo up, I think, 2 millimeter. So the longer suspension travel you have in the front here, so the longer shocks, like if I went to any longer of a shock than the 90 mils in the front, I would either have to switch to that version 2 YEAHRUN 2 axle, or I would have to move my servo up, or I would have to relocate stuff, move my servo somewhere else. There is other things you can do depending what you have, like the Blazer. You can run your servo out here out of the way. But the easiest way to do it is to just get you some spacers like these right here. They're M3 spacers. And you just space your servo up to whatever you need to match for your travel. And you can see here, I'm right at maxed out for 90 mil shocks. That's perfect right there. I get full stuff left and right. And it just comes up right to the servo. So that worked out actually perfect. So that's what, and I think I got it spaced up 2 millimeters. It's either 2 millimeter or 2.5 millimeter. I don't know. You can just buy kits online, and what you need is what you need. So that's what I ran in the front, and that will give you. Here's my thing. What I found, and I have them coming. I was hoping they'd be here before I did this video. I recommend running an 80 mil shock in the front and moving your servo up a little bit higher. I know it sounds crazy, but the shock body on your 80 mil shock, the shock body itself is short, right? So you actually end up with more compression travel. You'll get less travel this way, but you'll get more compression travel. So when you're flexing up, you'll get more compression on that side with an 80 mil than you're getting with your 90 millimeter shock because of the shock body height difference. And the 80 mil is a perfect match for these shock towers. Now 80-90, it don't matter. The 90s will limit your overflexing of your leaf pack, so you're not going to get your leaves bowing down because you don't want your leaves to start doing this shit. If you get your leaf spring and you start seeing this shit right here, this is when your breakages start happening, okay? If you get over compressed on your shocks, your leaves will start doing this. If your leaves start doing that, you're going to start stress cracking them around your holes right here on your screws. That's a big no-no. You don't want to do that. And they will do it, even no matter what. Even if you're running a full spring pack, you know, they will start compressing, and it'll over compress, and that's when the guys start cracking these, breaking them. That's what happens to your leaf packs. That's why 90 or 80 is pushing it on the front. 90, in my opinion, is pushing it in the back. You know, unless you're running somebody's aftermarket leaf springs. Then you can, I'd have no idea what to tell you on that. I'm glad there's people out there making options for everybody with that stuff. For me, I'm not blowing $300 on those aftermarket leaf springs. I just think it's, I'm not saying the guy's work's not worth it or anything like that, and I know it probably takes a lot of time. I'm just not spending $300 on an already $600-700 truck, or whatever they cost. I think I had like $5 something in this one. I just can't see doing that when budgetly you can modify your stuff to get it to work. So that's how I do my suspension on pretty much all my trucks. I do remove the internal springs in the shocks. These shocks are actually very nice. These cheap ones from AliExpress. They don't need to have a internal, or they don't need to have shock oil to slow your rebound. They actually use like a reverse friction spring inside of them. When you compress them, it just don't do that and spring back up. It has like, you know, a slow return spring, like you're running like a 30-40 weight shock oil. I thought that was pretty cool. I still rip the springs out of them. Primarily for me, I like scale suspension action, especially for doing videos. I've never had a performance issue running it this way either, how I drive, because I just don't go out there and flop around all over the trail like a fish out of water, beating and bashing around. I take my time and enjoy the scale trucks. You got to drive them like you're in them. This video is getting way too long. I know most people aren't going to watch it. I hate doing these long videos. So that is a setup that I run. Like I said, this will work with the leaf under as well. If you're going to go with a leaf under, you're definitely going to have an 80 mil shock in the front. You never ever want to limit yourself to an 80 or not 80 or 70 in the back. Even with a leaf under, it's going to be even worse. If you're going with a leaf under shock in the back, you're probably honestly going to want, like, I think most guys are running like 60s or 70s in the back, because that taller shock body, when you go to leaf under, it'll actually pull that shorter shock up higher and give you more travel with the shorter shock body. That's what I found over time. Like I said, you know, when I was making the comments on your video, I was just trying to help you out. Toe shifter, you know, because I've done the leaf spring trucks for a long time. Sometimes it's just, you know, I try to put the information out there to help people. So, yeah, that's what we got. We'll slap the body back on it, and we'll go what I've gotten out of this truck so far with this setup. All right, so let's get this video ended, because I know most people quit watching it already a long time ago. So what we got here is just a can and a can of dip here. And this is, I've already measured it once, but I'll measure it here on camera. It's 4 inches of travel. It's 4 inches of travel. I don't know if you guys can make that out. That's what we got here. That's basically what those stack together. It's 4 inches of suspension travel. I made an articulation ramp, and I don't have it done. I just haven't had enough time. But I think maybe it'll pick it up better there, and we're on actual flat. So, yeah, there we go. So, this table is up higher on that side. It was making it cattywampus. So, I don't know if you can see from that angle there. 4 inches of suspension travel. To the top of that can. Actually, it's a little more sitting flush down. So that's, in my opinion, fairly good. That's more suspension travel than you're going to see on one of these real extra cab Yodas in real life. That should be more than enough to get you by. That's with the 90s all the way around. I can get more, like I said, because we're at full stuff over here on this shock on this side. So if I had more up travel, this would droop down more. This would sit down. That would let this shock drop down more, and it would sit even more level with 80 mil shocks on the front. Not that the 90s won't work. I'm going to run them for a while. I went ahead and ordered me a set of 80s. So we got that down. The front end, you're not going to totally get as much because, it's a TF2, and that's just how they are. So there we go. On the front end, we're up a little bit over here. On this one, 80 mil shocks on the front of this. This tire would be up inside of the fender well. This tire would be sitting flat down on the ground with 80 mil shocks in the front. So that's what I'm saying. With 80 mils on the front, you would get more. Or if you run 90s in the front and 100 in the back, I think you'd get more too. It would be about the same what you would be looking at, but I would rather put the 80s in the front if it was me than the 100s in the back. But you will get that full on right there, sitting flat, totally down. We're sitting totally flat down all the way around. You know, like I said, with an 80, your tire would actually be up here in the fender where it should be. But we'll measure this by itself. Okay. So, I can see where we're at here. So a little over 3 inches, little over 3 inches of suspension travel that you're going to get with that. So you get about three something in the front, over 4 in the back with this setup. If I had the 80 mil shocks in the front, you would get, and I didn't have to buy special leaf springs. I didn't do any kind of chino. I didn't do any O-rings. I hate the chino mod personally myself. I'm not a big fan of it. Makes your leaf springs rattle and beat around inside your purchase real bad. On that note, a lot of guys out there, you watch videos, they'll put spacers and washers and shit in all of their hangers to tighten their leaf springs up. Listen, a good leaf spring setup, the truck will be a little loose. It won't be super tight. Even in real life, when leaf springs start working in, man, when you're off-roading, a good set of leaf springs they'll actually break in. Like, real leaves actually break in on real trucks over time. They do. I don't know what else to tell people. 4 Jeeps, 20-some Jeeps between me and my brothers probably. We've always been Jeep people. We've had Willie's Jeeps. We've had everything. Off-roading, you know, those positive arc springs like I have on my 1YJ, they suck for off-roading. They're super stiff. A good set of broken-in leaf springs. A lot of people consider them wore out. You'll get way more plusher suspension and travel out of them. We've taken wore out leaf springs and made lift blocks for the real Jeeps in the real world. Done spring overs with them to get your height back. And you'll actually get better off-road ability out of a good set of broken-in leaf springs than you will a brand new set of leaf springs out of the package on a real 1-to-1. It's just, that's the truth. These trucks work the same way in the RC world. It just equates down in from 1-to-1 to these trucks in a 110. So I know this video is long. Hopefully it helped people out. I'm probably not going to do a whole lot more. This is the last leaf spring video that I'm going to do on the channel. I'm just done with it. You know, this will be like the 3rd or 4th video I've actually done on it. I don't know if a lot of people are actually technically really interested in a lot of the technical videos I've been doing. I'm probably not going to keep going with a lot of the technical breakdown videos I've done with the HG. Just kind of getting, it's putting me way behind on doing the build, doing all like the intricate, showing you guys like the best setups and stuff like that. So I'll probably kind of quit, and then I'm going to start filming, getting into that build. I've got one more project I have to get caught up here on the TF3. I need to get the 1800 put in it, the SE. I just don't know if it's really, it puts me way behind doing the filming. I didn't think it would put me that far behind, but it did. And I'm just limited on time anyways. So I appreciate everybody that is watching. I'm hoping guys are getting, you know, usable information from those videos. I just don't know if a lot of people actually want to see that stuff. So that's where I'm going with that. I'm actually thinking about like the filming stuff altogether, that stuff on the channel. I'm primarily focusing on the trail stuff when the weather gets better. Just going out and shooting trail footage to make it easier. I'm not sure. I haven't totally decided yet. I've just been considering all my options with that stuff. Just go out and do the filming, and then that'll be about it. So I'm not real sure, but anyhow, guys, that's where my suspension setups are. That's where I'm at on the suspension setups. You guys can drop questions, comments down below, whatever. I've ran this truck now for, I think I have now, well, I got it brand new when it came out, the white extra cab. There's a lot of trail use on this. My son's taken it out and drove it. And he's used to more of the leaf spring, you know, basher type crawlers. This thing drove great for him. He only had one rollover with it. You know, because these trucks are a little harder to drive. So, yeah, that's where that's how I set my stuff up, guys. You know, a little bit of tweaking here and there. And this truck is lowered a bunch from what it was. My Marty truck I have set up, and I haven't messed with the leaf springs on it because it came with the stiffer leaves, which toe shifter, that's probably what's on your red 4Runner. It's probably the older style, you know, stiffer leaves. I would recommend your main leaf if you're looking for a softer leaf right from the get-go. Like I said, flexing those out will take some of the spring tension out of the steel. It's just how it works with spring steel. You know, any spring steel. Some guys, you know, like the red leaf springs from RC 4-wheel drive. I've got a set of those on my red 4Runner over here. There's a video already on my channel with that. Because I had the same leaf springs on it that you had on your red one, and they were just way too stiff. They will break in over time, your leaf springs. Taking them and heating those leaf springs up with a electric torch is what I use, but you could probably use a regular torch. You could, bless you, you could heat them and and that'll help too, but you got to be careful when you're doing stuff like that, you know. I don't recommend doing that, but I have had friends that have done that. You know, heat when you take and heat up that spring steel, it'll take out some of the tension out of them too, but it can weaken them, so I wouldn't recommend doing that. uh you know, flexing them on the bench with them off the truck will get you breaking them in faster. For me, I recommend the black soft springs from RC 4-wheel drive, or I'd recommend the Power Hobby, the 4-inch whatever. I'll have to see if I can find a link for that. I don't know if I can find it or not, because I buy them off AliExpress, and I know a lot of people don't use AliExpress. I've never had any trouble with them ordering from them. So I know on eBay they're labeled Power Hobby. If you find Power Hobby and they'll say like for TF2, blah, 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 blah. They'll come with your bruiser shackle and they'll come with a full leaf spring pack. The main leaf from that will work a lot better than the RC 4-wheel drive leafs that came on the Red 4Runner. They'll automatically be softer. Now, when you get into one more thing before we close this out, and sorry guys, the video is super long. Taking your internal springs out of your shocks, I'd mentioned it before, will make it pretty loose. And I know a lot of guys want all that super technical, you know, slow return, blah, 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 blah. Don't need it. I'm sorry, you don't need it. If you're scale driving a scale truck, if you do want to slow it down, the best way I have found, take your shocks apart on these. I open the holes up in the pistons inside the shocks a little bit with just a hand drill, and I'll take grease, pack the shock up in there a little ways with grease. That'll give you what you're looking for. It'll take that bounce out of your shocks. It'll actually slow your and it'll help with leaf spring wrap as well, because your shock's not letting it, you know, kick back as much. That's what I do with mine. Plus, the grease will keep crud and stuff from getting up inside the shock and making it, you know, to where you have to take it apart, clean it, and work on it. So that's what I do with mine. These shocks haven't leaked out. If you wanted to put oil in them, you could put a heavier oil. I've also used diff fluid in my shocks, like a heavy diff fluid, when I want to really slow the shock down. For me, these trucks are more about going out and making scale footage. So like I said, if you're driving one of these trucks off-road, they bounce. You know, I like them driving like the real one-to-one truck. That's why I build my stuff. You know, I know some people want more performance than they do, you know, scale accuracy. I'm the opposite. I'll trade performance for scaleness. That's just how I've always been. That's why there's scale trucks, and then there's, you know, TRX4s. For me, I would, you know, keep my RC4 drive Blazer for scale stuff and go out and beat and bash the TRX4. It's hard to find a balance in both worlds. Not that you can't, because you can really spend the money and go to like Twisted Fab or that other guy and, you know, blow $200 or $300-$400 on a suspension setup and have it leafed and put big tires under it, and I'm pretty sure they'll do the same thing. But yeah, I don't do comp stuff. I'm not a comp guy. So I don't really give a shit about that stuff. I just like going out and making cool scale content, you know, with scale trucks. So that's why I like them to drive like the real truck. Hopefully that helped, you know, guys out. Video's already going to be stupid long. And I know it's not going to get watched by most. So we're going to stop there. And if anybody has any questions or comments down below, that's it. I'm not going to be doing any more filming, probably on, like I said, on technical stuff. I'm probably going to start that build on that new HG truck. I was going to do an unboxing and everything. I don't think there's probably any sense. I don't know. Maybe just start ripping into that. I don't even know how much more I'm going to film with that truck. I was going to do some videos taking it apart. Before I stop with the technical videos and stuff like that, the guy that asked for the person that asked for me to do the RC 4-wheel drive fitment and the clone axles, I will do that for you. I will do that video. I will try to get that video worked on this weekend and get that posted up for you so you have it. That will probably be the last video I do on doing any kind of that technical stuff. So anyhow, hopefully that helped people out. Explain some things. So anyhow, hopefully that helped people out from the RC Dungeon. Peace.